fastest connection there in that location. And I'm really excited to be able to share with each of you some things that God has gifted me with over the years as I've worked with children with and without learning challenges. And we're excited about presenting this webinar on making learning easier. So I'm going to start my screen sharing here so that you can see the PowerPoint, and then that will be recorded on the recording as well. So just a minute. Okay.
Screen sharing has started.
So everyone should be able to see my screen there. Just want to give you a little background on myself. I have been doing the neurodevelopmental work for just right at 20 years. And I've seen some amazing things happen in my own life, with my children, and that I work with. So just to give you a little background, when I was in high school, my parents said, you have to go to college. Well, my goal in life was to be a wife and mother. So when I went to Texas Tech University, I majored in home economics education and child development. So I could be a teacher if I needed to be, which I was for a while. And but I could also be ready to fulfill my greatest calling, and that was as a mother. Well, I was fortunate enough to have these two beautiful girls. The one on the left is the youngest. Her name is Alyssa. And the one on the right is Janae. She's the one that got me into this work because she had some pretty severe learning challenges. And we were able to make life-changing differences in her life through this approach. And from there I saw many things happen from children that are gifted to children that are severely impacted by learning challenges. Now, I have to tell you that the only thing that is better than being a mother is that of being a grandmother. And this is my grandbaby, Kennedy. She's almost 9 months old now. And for those of you that are homeschooling, she went to the first convention with us in Oklahoma in April. So there she is in the booth. You can see the books across the aisle from her. So just a joy to watch all of this neurodevelopment from the very start with the babies. It's really thrilling as well. So now I've had my bragging. Let's go ahead and get started. You know, a lot of times people feel like that being able to make learning easier has to do with curriculum. Well, I'm here to let you know tonight that curriculum is just a part of what you can do to make learning easier. It's really like the decorations in the room. It's stuff you like to look at, the couches and the paint and the fixtures and all those kind of things. But what really makes a difference in the ability to make learning easier is the brain. The brain controls everything that we do, and not a lot of people start there. And it's interesting because I recently went back to get my master's degree in special education, and nobody was really talking about the brain. But since that controls everything we do, and we all have one, we have to start there, and that's what we call the foundation, how the brain is organized. Now, what I'd like you to do is we're going to have a little bit of a lecture part where I'm going to tell you about how to make learning easier, and then we're going to do some questions and answers at the end. So if you'll just write those down, and then at the end we'll start in the chat and take as many questions as we can. So, if you ask yourself, why is my child so disorganized? Or maybe you have some of these kind of thoughts where you say, you're often looking for your glasses just to find them on the top of your head. Or you might say, why do I feel so scattered? And my keys keep disappearing. Things like that are really caused by foundational issues in the brain. These are just simple issues of the root cause, and we call that a shaky foundation. When you have a shaky foundation, the structure doesn't last long, or it's not pretty, or it doesn't work very well. Now, you can make your faux finished walls really beautiful, and if your foundation has a problem, then you're going to have cracks in that beautiful faux finish. So you don't want to concentrate on the curriculum per se, or the exact way the child is functioning. You want to make sure that the foundation is good, and then it's going to function really well. Now, this is kind of an unusual idea for some people, because that's all they've been taught is technique and different kinds of work with curriculum. But just as an exercise for us, and you can go ahead and do the chat on this, I'm going to ask you to count the letter F in the following text. When you feel like you know how many F's there are, just go ahead and type that in the text, in the chat box. So here's the text. Okay, Carla says there's 3. Somebody's saying 7. Anybody else? Just type in the number that you see. It's kind of interesting because 2 people are saying that there are different numbers, and they're looking at the same screen here. Somebody says there's 6. Oh, you can't see the whole screen? Oh my goodness, just a second. Now, let me see it. When that happens, I can't see the chat anymore. Let me kind of fix that. Just a second. So I've got to see the chat. Okay. Well, okay, somebody said there were 5. There are actually 6 in this. Oftentimes the letter, the of, disappears. The F in the ofs, and there's 3 of those. So the main point in this exercise is just so that you see that many people can look at the same thing, but see different things. So I want you to go with me a little bit outside of your paradigm, the way you've been thinking about education, and we look at things a little bit differently. All right, but we're going to start with 3 keys to learning that make learning easier. And we call this, everything has an acronym these days, we call it FID, right? It stands for frequency, intensity, and duration. Frequency has to do with how many times someone sees a particular thing. What you'd like to do as a teacher is tell the child one thing and tell them one time, and they've got it. And that would be our dream, right? Well, actually, we have to dream on that one, because it's not going to happen. We have to have multiple times of seeing something frequently to be able to really have it in our memory. And intensity is how strong that information comes in, how intense that information is. And then the duration is how long. This has actually 2 aspects. Duration is short periods of time and then over a period of time. So you would make that frequently each day, intense, and interaction with the child, and then the duration be very short, and then but repeated over a week or a month or however long you needs to be repeated to gain function. Now, I'm going to be demonstrating this technique or this concept of frequency, intensity, and duration throughout the presentation today. So, what I want you to do is, besides learning other things, you're going to learn something visually. I'm going to show you a number of flags, and I want you to look carefully, and then you're going to have a test later. So, look at this one. This is the flag of Ireland, Chad, Nepal, Serbia, and Belize. Alright, so that didn't take long, did it? It was pretty intense because I told you that we're going to need that information. You're actually going to be tested on it later, so I hope you pay close attention. And it didn't take very long. The duration was just a few seconds. We can unlock a child's fullest potential with this kind of technique in anything that we want to test them on, work with them, and teach them. But since the foundation is the brain, we want to start there. We're going to illustrate this with this foundation. The first thing we're going to start with is the brain organization. And then we're going to talk about receiving information as well as processing. And then we're going to end with storing information. So those are kind of the cornerstones of the brain and the way that it brings in information and what it does with that information. First, we're going to talk about brain organization. Now, Henry Thoreau said, if you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. But now, let's build a foundation under them. So, I want you to know it's never too late to build a foundation. But it starts right here. So the good news is, if your child or you are past this stage, then there's hope for you as well. But this is an area that I see happening a lot with our culture, and that is that we are doing things in our culture that actually deter a child from being on the floor, on their stomach, and then up on their hands and knees, getting the information they need to really develop the brain. We have all these gadgets to put their children in, and there's all kinds of philosophies. Some say we need to sling them all the time, and so they're right there next to mom. There's backpacks and infant seats, and there's all the different types of gadgets that we put our children in, and that actually keeps them off of the ground. When a child is on the ground on their stomach starting out, they get information through their tactile system as they move on the ground. And this really starts connecting their brain to their body so that they can move. Let me just show you a little bit about the way the brain is organized. It starts here at the lower level, at the medulla level, and that's just where there's random movement. There's really no control over the movements. The child is just starting to move. Well, if the child is on their stomach and they're moving, they get that input on the floor. If there's a tile that may be cool, and they get warmth, they get information from the carpet, all of those kind of things are building that pathway to the brain to know where your arms and legs are. Then you move up to the pons level of the brain, which is the crawling, which is on the stomach. If you think of this, think of army crawl. That's the one where they're on the stomach and they're going across the ground. Now, at this level, you start to have organized movement. First the arms will go, and then the legs. But then it starts to organize in what we call a cross-pattern movement. And that's where the right arm and the left leg are moving at the same time. And the significance of this is one side of the body is controlled by the opposite side of the brain. And when you move opposite limbs, it builds the connections between the two hemispheres so that there's communication. So this is a very important stage that should not be skipped and can be brought back in. We're actually going to talk about these at a later webinar, go into more depth in this, but I just wanted to give you a little overview here. The next level at the midbrain, they're creeping on their end and knee, and because of the gadgets that are out there, oftentimes they skip both the crawling and creeping and just go straight to walking. That's why we have a lot of people that have disorganized brain. Now, the other webinar that we're going to go into more detail here is the learning struggles, one that we're going to give in a couple of weeks on June 14th. But if you are interested in getting information before that, we have a DVD called the Neuro-Developmental Approach, and that's a 2-hour seminar that will actually tell you some things to check on and some things to do about what you find in all the areas that we're going to be talking about. So that's a really good resource for you if you're a teacher, or I just talked with someone today that had a child care center that is implementing this. Actually, after talking with me at the book fair, she changed her baby room where they had more room to be on the floor on their stomach, which is really exciting because that way those children are going to have a lot better opportunity to gain the neurological organization that they need. All right, now this neurological organization is not always pretty, and it's not always the most fun part of our development, but it's very essential. You know, you can't build a skyscraper unless you dig down and really make that foundation solid. Just wanted to show you this screen. This is a screen of part of the brain, where they dyed the different pathways. And I just think when I look at something like this, I just know how amazing our God is, because to make sense of the jumbled mess that looks like, and be able to, your brain, take in information and move your finger, that's exciting. The more we have the stimulation, and especially specific stimulation, the more these branches grow in the brain. And we call that plasticity. That's the ability of the brain to change and grow. And this only happens through input. Input is the key factor, whether we're inputting to the tactile system or any other system. It has to have input. Now, this little guy is a really wonderful success story. This is Daniel when he was little, and he was the son of a missionary family to Mexico. And they had a housekeeper that just loved Daniel, and of course that little towhead was not going to be able to be down on the ground because it was dirty, so she carried him everywhere he went. Well, when he was older, he came to us when he was 14, and he had a very cracked foundation. He was 14 and he couldn't read. His mom said he can't even remember D and and. It's just really very devastating for them. I mean, she recalled that he was clumsy, and so he didn't have organized movement, and that's also from those developmental steps that he missed. So he was having a number of struggles. But after working on our program, he did an individualized program with us. Here he is as an adult. He actually graduated from college on time. So he wasn't reading at all at 14, but graduated on time from college with a 3.8 grade average. So we were really excited about that. He's a business owner, successful, and he lives as a daddy too. All right, now I'm going to give you a test, and I don't know exactly how to do this because I don't see the chat. Okay, so go ahead and type in your answer. if you remember this one. Okay. So some of you may need a little more input because you don't remember that one. So pay close attention because this is going to be another input session that will help you with your test later on. Okay. Okay, some people said Serbia, some people said Chad, but it's really Serbia. Okay, so this is Serbia, Nepal, Ireland, and Chad. Okay, so that's a demonstration, an illustration of those three keys to learning. We did it frequently. We've done it twice now. And the intensity was there because it was going to be really short. You had to pay close attention. And the duration was very, very short. All right, you've gotten some more input. So this is a key that you can take this example and teach anything that you want to teach. Now, we put these keys in what we call early learning foundations. And at first glance, this looks like a typical preschool kit. But built into this are all the different parts of the neurodevelopmental approach. The lower level brain organization, cross pattern, and those kinds of activities. Things for the tactile system to help connect the hand to the brain better so that they can write. And all kinds of frequent input that we teach you in that. This is something for 2.5 to 5-year-olds. And we're getting some really good feedback on how the kids are excited about learning this way. We also have the next level, which is a kindergarten level of early learning foundations, level 2. And here they actually start to add, and they have a whole myriad of things that they work on, math related. And we also have a Kansas Corner. We're going to talk about that later. That's named after my grandbaby, and that's for infants. So you might want to check that out. So after the brain is organized at that particular level, then we're going to start receiving information. So let's talk about receiving for a minute. Receiving is done through the 5 senses. First, it's going to be done by touch. And this is the tactile system, what information comes in through your senses. Now, if this is not functioning correctly, it may be giving the brain core messages. And this would be someone that doesn't like to be hugged or touched. The tags in their clothes bother them, and that kind of thing, where they're hyper to touch. But they could also be hypo, where the deep touch is not registering correctly, and this can cause some problems, like if they have ear infections and they don't feel pain appropriately, then they are not going to let you know when they're feeling pain. It can also cause problems with bedwetting and that kind of thing. So we definitely want that information coming in correctly. Taste and smell are other ways that the brain gets information. Not the most efficient thing that you can get. Mostly you get the information through hearing and through seeing. Now you can relate some of this, those of you that are know about learning styles, you can relate that to receiving. Now some children may choose a learning style because there's a deficit in some of these other areas. So it's really important for the brain to receive good information. We see a lot of children have difficulties in speaking and in other processing kind of things when the ear does not hear well through fluid or ear infection. So that's something you really want to make sure it's not happening with your young children. And then visually, that's a whole subject in itself, of course. You do have to see close up and far away, but vision is so much more than that. It's actually how the eyes are working together, and again, on that DVD, it will tell you some things to check on to look at how the eyes are working together and tracking, and that obviously is going to be very important for your ability to read and make learning easier there. Some children also have central detail vision where they don't see right in the center, they see more peripherally, and that is going to cause problems with reading as well. So, if there's some of these issues, we're going to have a bumpy road instead of a highway to run on as far as our foundation. So let's do a little more input here. Give you another chance. This is Chad, Paul, Serbia, Ireland. Okay, good. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about briefly is processing. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to give you all the details in all of these subjects tonight. That's why we're having 4 different webinars. So, but I'm going to let you know about these and why they're important for you to know. If your child has an issue in this foundational area, they might, you might say to yourself, why can't they follow directions? And why can't they remember to do their chores? You may even wonder if it's a rebellion issue because they're not doing what they're told. But it could be that it's a processing issue. We call this a foundational cornerstone, auditory processing. That's your short-term memory. It's what comes in and what comes right back out. And I actually refer to it as the best-kept secret in education because not many people know about it, but it affects everything. We used to be a very auditory society. We would eat 3 meals together and talk, and now we're driving along through the drive-thru, throw the food over the back seat on the way to a soccer game or some other event that we have to go to. But it's really important to develop the auditory processing, and our society has gone much more visual, which makes it more difficult. But here's some of the goals of our education and our life that are affected by auditory processing. If you don't process well, you have trouble following directions. Staying on task is obviously a goal that we have, starting something and staying on it. But again, if this is cracked, then there's lots of issues there. A person would have trouble following a conversation. They wouldn't be able to stay on the subject. They would listen on, they would be looking like they're listening to the conversation, but as soon as there's an opening, they're talking about some other subject. And people are kind of looking at them like, really? That's not what we were talking about. Acting age appropriate has everything to do with their processing ability. Comprehending, this would be as they're reading, holding those pieces of the story together as they're listening or as they're in a conversation. They would also, one of our goals would be to hold the pieces of math, word problems together, and that is something that's very difficult when you have low processing. The ability to use phonics, it's very interesting that I've seen a direct correlation in learning phonics and their processing ability. If they can't hold those pieces of information together about what each sound makes or each phonogram makes, and then the rule on top of that, then they have a lot of struggle in phonics. They also have trouble understanding the big picture and thus the consequences. So cause and effect, seeing the big picture of their actions and that kind of thing is definitely a goal we have for our children, but is difficult in this kind of situation if the processing is low. Now, it's interesting how different it is now and when our forefathers were on the earth. They had very high processing ability, and we had a 14-year-old, John Adams, that actually went across the ocean to be the ambassador to the United States in a foreign country across the ocean. So I don't know about you, but most 14-year-olds these days, you can't hardly send them to the store without some guidance and some help. So there's a big difference in our abilities, and I believe there's a direct relationship to the auditory process. Now, on Tuesday, June the 19th, we're going to give a whole webinar dedicated just to this, because I believe it's such a foundational and wonderful, important aspect of our development. We're going to do the whole thing on auditory processing. We're going to teach you how to test for it, what to do about it, and a lot of the ramifications that you may be dealing with. Now, just to give you an idea of what a good processing ability can do is, I just have this quick story about Angela. She was 12 years old, had a very good processing ability because she'd been working on it for several years, and she was able to work for me as a branch director. I traveled and worked with families in other cities, and she was able to come alongside me, work with the parents, give them instructions, and work with the credit card machine, reschedule, answer questions, and all of that at age 12. So it was very impressive to me what can happen when the child has good processing. We've got a pre-test kit that we're going to send everybody that registered for this, so you can be looking for that in the email in the next couple of days. A pre-auditory test kit where you can actually test your child in advance of our next webinar that's going to talk about this. And just so that you know, you really need, they need to be able to do a 5 working on 6. So the third column here, they should be able to be started, able to do that for phonics to work well. So if you find they're low in phonics, we've got some other answers for you while you're working on the processing and bringing that up. So before we do that, here's your last chance for input before your test. You ready? There we go. Serbia, Nepal, Ireland, Chad. Okay. Now, something I have noticed in our educational culture is that we do something kind of unusual with our math facts. We hold up this magic card that looks like this. Typically, this is how we work on it. Or we have a drill sheet that we say, get faster at this, do this faster. Now, my question is, those things must be magic, because if it's not in there good, it's not going to come out good. But we're expecting it to come out just by holding up this magic card. So we created something called Rapid Recall System, and you'll see over here that our flashcards are totally different than the one you first saw. They actually have the answer on them. But this system is much more than flashcards. They actually see, hear, say, and write 5 math facts 14 times in one day, and they do it with using this frequency and sensitive duration. That for 2 minutes they'll listen to a CD, and it will say to them, 3 plus 4 equals 7. There's some different voices and some funny things that happen along the way to make it intense and to bring them back to listening to math facts. Things, they're listening along to some math facts, and their brain is about to go to sleep on them or go to another thought, something maybe trying to come in and intrude on their thoughts, and somebody will say, it's time for the news. The news is over. And they're like, what did you just say? And now they're listening to math facts again. So they've been all perked up and listening again. And then they listen later on, and they fill in what's called a discovery game answer sheet. So they have an answer sheet in front of them. They're listening to the CD, and it tells them 3 plus 4. It's not the first one that they see on the row, so they have to look for it. And find it, then they hear the answer and write the answer they just heard. So with these 4 different sessions of input, we are getting fabulous results with this product. Actually, my daughter was taught with this 15 years ago, something similar to this, and I just checked her recently. She could do 39 addition problems correct in 1 minute with what they said was a 40 IQ. So it works for children that are struggling. And then I had a mom tell me that her son is a genius in math. He's doing all this higher level algebra, but he's always getting his problems wrong because his math facts are not solid. And so she said, I had a whole shelf of things that I have tried and that didn't work, and I didn't expect him to know it, but now he knows it, and so he's just soaring in math. This is some of the test results that we got from our research project in the 1st grade. There were 4 groups in this, 4 different classrooms in this school. They all used the same state-adopted Texas curriculum. And the last one here on the right, they added the rapid recall to their curriculum. So this is a supplemental product that can just solidify those math facts and can work with any curriculum that you might be using. This is what happened in that same classroom in subtraction. So we had 2 first graders be able in 3 minutes to answer 70 subtraction problems correctly. So that was really exciting. Okay, now back to our foundation. We, after the brain is organized and receives information and processes it in the short-term memory, then we have to look at how is the information stored. So if there's a storage problem with your, the foundation is, the storage the foundation is not good, then you might ask yourself, how does my child know something one day and not the next? Something you've taught them, you think they have it, and then it's gone. Then you might also ask, why does it take it so long to do everything? Well, we believe it has everything to do with dominance. And dominance is where the information is stored in your brain. You see with both eyes, but one eye chooses the place for storage. You hear with both ears, but one ear is the primary one that stores the information. Now, the reason this is so important, and what you start with in dominance is your hand. So you're always going to look for what hand are they, and you want everything else to line up on the same side to be the most efficient. Now, once this side of your body is controlled by this hemisphere of the brain, and the other side is controlled by the opposite hemisphere of the brain. So, if you are right-handed, you want to be right-eyed, right-eared, and right-footed. This is going to be the most efficient. Now, there's a lot of people that will find that they're mixed dominant, but we believe that it's not as efficient, and it can cause some severe problems in some situations. When you have efficient storage, you have this pristine brain that has everything filed just like a library, where you can just go to a specific piece of information, pull it out, and have it come out for you. So let's see with our test if you have that information stored accurately. I'm going to have to get the chat box back up there right quick. Okay, so we're going to have a test, and I'm going to show you on the screen a particular flag, and then I want you to type in as fast as you can what you think it is. Okay, are y'all ready? Okay, I've got a lot of Ireland, so those that said Ireland, you're correct. Serbia. This is Serbia. How about this one? Oh, you remember this one. Everybody's answering Nepal. Very good. Very good. Okay, this one? Yeah, very good. This is Chad. All right, you ready for this one? Okay. There's a couple of people that are saying believe, but not very many. And some have question marks. I wonder why. This is beliefs, you're right. But I saw all of these chats coming up where everybody was immediately knowing what most of those flags were, but not very many with this. So what is the difference? Does anybody know? You can chat it. Oh, you didn't review this one. You're right. Frequency, intensity, and duration. You only saw this one time. So those of you with the photographic memory, of course, you knew this one, but the others of you definitely struggled. So you can see that we just demonstrated for you that frequency, intensity, and duration. And I'm hoping that this is going to impress you so much that when the children that you're working with, whether it's your own or classrooms, when they don't know something, you just have to think to yourself, oh, they need more input. That's your new paradigm. That's one way that it will make things easier for you. Now, let's talk just a little bit about making reading easier. One way to make reading easier is called echo reading. Echo reading is where you read something and the child reads immediately after you exactly what you read. Now, a beginner, it's just going to be a sentence or two sentences. For another child, it might be a paragraph. Another child might have the ability to have you read a whole page, and they read the whole page. Not only does this work on fluency, but it will help them with their confidence and intonation and all of that kind of thing. So this is a very good technique, especially if the child is struggling with phonics, to do echo reading. You can work on their auditory processing ability using the 3 keys of input. For auditory, what we recommend is frequently 2 or 3 times a day, you're going to work on this intense listening that you're going to get with that pre-test kit, and we're going to go over in the webinar as well. Intensity is it's going to only last a very short time, and you're going to be really excited about all the positive answers, and so it's going to make it real intense. And the time is only going to be a couple of minutes, and you do this over several months, and you get great results. Now, in the meantime, I wanted to tell you about one other thing that I found called curricular key ring. This is something that teaches the basics of 5 different subjects in a 10-minute period. So you just use these flashcards to input in a very short amount of time, and then you expand the knowledge with the teacher's guide. And this has worked really, really well for meeting students. So you might want to look into that. Okay, and then the other thing you can do, if you find that your child's processing is low, and you want them to go ahead and start working on reading, you can work on what we call an input flash session. And this is teaching the word by just looking at the word and telling the child what it is. Now, some people are gasping, even though I can't hear them, because some people think that it's just a sin to teach reading that particular way. But what we found is it's a really good way to teach reading while you're working on their processing, then you add the phonics back in, and then you've got the best of both worlds, because we are really sight readers. I want you to read this. Some of you may have seen this study that was done. Okay, isn't that interesting that our brain immediately puts these things in the right order because we are sight readers. Once we know the word, we just read it. We never sound it out again. So it's really okay. I'm giving you permission to remember the thing that we were looking at before with the paragraph with the S. You can look at things differently and know that it's okay to do sight reading for a while, including the echo reading, while you are building the processing, and then you're going to have a great reader eventually. Now, one thing that we have that helps with this is called Instant Words. And this is a program where the words would come up on the screen like this: look, where, now, door. Now, it's going to say it for them and tell them about it so that they know what those words are. So this is one way to very intensely work on 10 words at a time so that they can understand it. And then, after they learn it, they've got some games that they can play that make it more fun for them. Right? The other thing that we have as a resource is the 1,000 words. So if you want to do this yourself on a with flashcards, you can go this way with the 1,000 words. All right, we're going to just go through this last part really fast because I want to get to your questions and answers. I just want you to know a little bit about the role of the different hemispheres of the brain. And when when you're all lined up on one side with your dominance, then you have better logic, analytical thought, and your language. This is your spoken language, your written language, and your reading and writing. So this is an important aspect of brain function, obviously. And then on the other side, we have the emotions, the creativity, and the music. So if you are working with a child, this is just a hint to make your life easier. If you have a child that gets real emotional easily, then you want to have them stand up and do some cross-pattern movement, or get on the floor and creep and crawl and do some cross-pattern movement, sprints or anything like that, to help them get back in control where the dominant hemisphere is making the decisions. Because if you try to reason with them when they're emotional, it's not going to go well. All right, if you don't have an efficient brain, you're going to feel like this, very overwhelmed a lot of the time. We say that brain efficiency is the difference between dial-up, if any of you are familiar with that, and high-speed internet. So I have actually experienced this and know the frustration of dial-up and how long it takes to load something. And if your child has this dominance problem, then they're going to have that kind of feeling all the time. Here's something that you should know about dominance. The emotions tend to run high with this kind of person. They are easily upset and hard to calm down oftentimes. They lack of the analytical thought and logic that you would think that they should have. When they go subdominant, they get very, very emotional, and they can start stuttering, stammering, and they don't have access to what they know. It's kind of like a locked cabinet. This is the child that goes into a testing situation, and you would think that he knows the information, and he does actually, but when he gets under stress, it's just a block. really a struggle there. So we're going to go into much more detail about dominance in the Learning Struggles webinar that we're going to have later in the month. To make math easier, I want to give you permission to give lots of input. And the way we recommend that you give input is that you do 50% of the math for them. Now that may sound really strange to you, but it works extremely well. If you do a problem, they do a problem. You do a problem, they do a problem. You divide that up into 2 or 3 sessions in the day instead of taking an hour to do math, and they're so frustrated that they want to pull their hair out. You use the keys of frequency, intensity, and duration with this, and you will be amazed at how math will be easier for them. Of course, we can also recommend a rapid recall to make that easier. Because once you know that foundational skill of your math facts, then it's not a problem to do the math, and it's not so frustrating. Also, if you check the ones that they got right, that adds some intensity to the whole thing. So if you have an organized brain, you're going to have organized behavior, which will equal an organized life. On the Neuro-Developmental approach, DVD, we teach you how to test for that and check for those things. Just want to share a quick story about John with you. He was in 1st grade. Mom sent this smart little boy off to school, and he came home not too long and said, "I'm not a very smart little boy." Well, actually, he was so smart that he could tell that he was having some struggles. He was having one of those disorganized brains that wasn't bringing the information out. He didn't qualify for services because he was so smart that he wasn't failing. So Mom brought him out of school and had him tested privately, and he was actually labeled dyslexic. But he tested with a 130 IQ, so obviously he was very bright, little guy. They went to a private school and did the traditional 2-year dyslexia program, and at 10 years, when he first came to us, he was reading at the 6th grade level, which is not bad for 10, right? Well, but when you have a higher IQ, you have higher potential. So what we found after 16 months of working on the Neuro-Developmental program, he was at 10th grade in his comprehension, in 9th grade in recognition. So he was really up closer to his full potential with the more organized brain. What I want you to do is I want to encourage you to become educated. We have all kinds of free articles on our website. And, of course, you can take advantage of the other free webinars that we're going to have as well. Just some hints about how to help your brain work better. Drink lots of water and eat fish or use the omega-3 supplements. Deep breathing to get lots of oxygen to your brain is very, very helpful. So just, especially if you have a mouth breather, you want to, several times a day, have them close their mouth and breathe through their nose. That's more efficient and gets better oxygen to your brain. Refusing to think negative thoughts, that's really good for your brain as well. And learning something new and challenging and exercising your brain is very helpful. Moving, actually moving your body helps your brain. So I want you to consider, with this idea of frequency, intensity, and duration, not having your child sit too long at one time to do their work. Have them get up and move, and that will really help their brain function better. You can check out Kenzie's Corner. We've got lots of information for the 0 to 4-year-old children, and then that seminar on the infants will be at the end of the month on the 28th. We have that insurance policy of early learning foundations. I actually wanted to work myself out of a job because I work with children typically that have learning challenges, and I saw that we could actually prevent a lot of those things. That's why I built all that neurodevelopment into early learning foundations program. We've got that level 1, 2, and 3 starting from 2.5 and on, if they're asking for information and wanting to go to school, then that's a place to start. We have some other options for you that you might want to look into, especially if you're in Texas. We have neuro-developmental screenings, and this is just a snapshot. It's not an evaluation or an individualized program of any kind, but it will help you understand about dominance and check their processing, look at the organization of the central nervous system, and then there'll be a seminar that teaches you about all of those kinds of things and what your options are in helping children function at a higher level. I just want you to know it's never too late. That's the good news. So just a quick story about these two ladies, 55 and 54, that came to me. They had always struggled with learning challenges in reading comprehension. This yellow is the comprehension, and the first column shows where they tested the first time they came in, and the second column shows 4 months later. They each came up 3.5 years in reading comprehension after 4 months, and they didn't do any reading. That's what the impressive thing about that. They didn't have any reading exercises. And isn't that what we typically look at when we want to increase reading? We want them to, if they don't read well, have them read a lot. Well, it's really a foundation problem. And when the foundation's good, then the results come up. We also have something called memory in motion. This is for the older folks. So it helps with balance and short-term memory, and just keeps them, either completes those neurodevelopmental steps or develops them, wherever they are. So that's something you can look on our website and look for that product, Memory in Motion, for all adults. So I hope that this has really helped you think differently about unlocking the child's learning potential. You've learned a little bit about how you can do math differently and reading differently. And we're going to be sending you that auditory test kit in the mail, or the email, as well as the record recall coupon for coming and joining us today. If you'd like to have the visual test kit, just go on to littlegiantsteps.com, onto our store, and request that. Just put 00 in the where the price is, because it doesn't cost anything, it's free, and put the X card and make you do that. So get that test kit so you can look at the visual processing too. We didn't talk much about that, but that's also an important part of the foundation.